Okay, here is a speech by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which was given in 1961. I know that we began something yesterday about how Moses set up the the tabernacle on the first day of Nisan, and that he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it on his own. He had to have God help him. And the Rebbe asked the question, how can it be the other previous days, the 7 days before that, he did do it on his own? How can it be? And there's something in there that I didn't understand. And so I just want to clarify it. I just was very busy yesterday. So I will clarify it. We're going to come back to that. But let's just do another speech that the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe gave, which is sort of on the same topic. Ready? Let's go. We'll come back to that. In all Yanim from Torah, and everything that there is in the Torah, is euch van ander Teilung from the Sidras, the division of the different parshas of the week is nit b'derech mikra. It's not just accidental. It's not something that's just done by convenience. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Nor b'diuk b'kavana. It was done exactly. And even if it happened to be that it was done later on and it wasn't done, by Jews even, but if it was accepted, the Jewish people, by the genuine rabbis, then it comes from the hand of God. Okay, so the division of the Torah portions is by divine direction. Exactly. Thus says this means as Yeder Sidra, that every single Torah portion, the name of every portion, and how it's divided up, Hot Ir Bazundur and Nikud. It has a special point, a special message, nit as to leave their grosser kamut, not just because there's so much in the Torah, so there had to be divided up. Had men gemuzed eintelling, you had to divide up the Torah into Torah portions. You can't read the whole entire Torah every Shabbat, or everybody just do whatever they want to, read as much as you want to. And the Jewish people have been reading the Torah in public nonstop since it was given, 3,300, 20-something years ago, in public. So you can't just have everybody, all the different congregations reading whatever they want to. So they divided it up, right? This is no, that's not, that's also true, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is, it's because that's what God wanted. There's a special message in each and every Torah portion for each and every one of us, and especially that week, for the week that we're in, for the time that we're reading it. Also, the name from every Torah portion is nit, therefore, it's not because was the Sidra hoiped on, because that's the first words of that Torah portion. Nor farkert, exactly the opposite. Is their nemen, the name hinted at, the anhalt, the content from the main point of that Torah portion. And therefore, is Rosh v'Techillah, the beginning of the Torah, is that word. So what's the Rebbe telling us? The Torah is a book of teaching. It's a practical workbook for the time that it's being read. How to live life. And each and every Torah portion contains a unique and a different message, different special message. Okay. Das is was steht, that's what it says in the Zohar, as Zayin and Faran, that there are Gan Sidarim, there's 53 different portions in the Torah. Is doch moving, so it's understood as the Gan, that the 32, the 53, that the 53 Torah portions of the Torah is a mismar duyak, it's very exact. And it's the same every year. Oich in the year, and even in the years when there are certain Torah portions which are read together, gelein zusammen, which we learn together. But because the divisions of the Torah portions is because there's specific message and the specific topics which are mentioned there that have to be learned by us and embodied by us and brought into reality by us. When Yeder Sidra, in every single Torah portion, Hadzer Bezundra has a special point. But a mol lentman, sometimes we read two Torah portions together. So how does that figure out? It says because sometimes there's two messages. Sometimes we read them together. Yedin Nekuda in a Bizunder Ravach. Sometimes we read them each point in a different week. And once in a while, it comes out that we read those 2 points are in the same week. So that's relevant to us because Yakel Pekude, this week's Torah reading and last week's, sometimes are read together. This year, it's not read together. This year, they're read separately. From them, for the fact is verstandig, it's understood as the parshas Vayakel and Pekudi, even in those years when they are read together, they have 2 separate points, 2 separate messages. Hagam, even though Beda parshas, that both of them, Raid and Vegan, they're talking about the same general topic, namely making the tabernacle and the different vessels in the tabernacle. The parshas Truma and Tetzaveh that we read 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, this talks about the commandment of God, from the Eibishter, from God, to make the tabernacle and its vessels. And parshas Vayakel and Pekude, that's talking about how the Jews actually did. Moses gave over to the Jewish people, and they actually made the tabernacle and its vessels. How the Jews actually made it. Okay, doch, so vermacht ze in sich zwei verschiedene nekudas. If so, we see here that there's 2 separate topics. Azoivi parshas Truma, like in Truma and Tetzaveh, Truma talks mainly about the vessels, and Tetzaveh talks mainly about the garments of the Kohen. Vosi is doch peshut, it's obvious, as this is 2 separate points, because men leint ze alamol, because Truma and Tetzaveh are never read together. They're always read separately. So obviously there's 2 separate messages in Truma and Tetzaveh. Those are the Torah portions that we read like 3 weeks ago. Was it 3 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago? Right? The Truma talks about the vessels of the tabernacle, and later on in the temple also. And Tetzaveh talks about the garments. So it's 2 separate messages. Chach, because they're talking about, even though they're talking about the same general topic, namely making the Mishkan. Okay, but there's a special, okay. So what's the Rebbe saying? There must be some sort of a special message here in this week's Torah portion, Pekude, that is not found anywhere else in the Torah, even though the topic of this week's Torah portion is the same topic of 3 other Torah portions, Truma and Tetzaveh, that's talking about building the Mishkan, and last week's Torah portion, Vayakel, is also talking about building the Mishkan. But here, there's something special. What's something special? And the chiluk zwischen dem Antal, the difference between the content of Vayakel and the content from Pekude, this week's Torah portion, is in Parshas Vayakel, last week's Torah portion, there zählt sich, it speaks about how Moses, zu Gamenkleven, he gathered together the Jews. Und ze Iber gegeben, and he gave to them the God's commandment to machen them Mishkan, to make them the Mishkan and the vessels. That's last week. Und, right, again, in Truma and Tetzaveh, God gave the commandments of building the tabernacle and the garments of the Kohen and all the vessels and things like that, that God gave to Moses. That's Truma and Tetzaveh. That was 3 weeks ago, whatever. Last week we read Parshas Vayakel. That's talking about how Moses commanded the Jewish people what to do. And the Yidden haben getan, and the Jews did what God said. In Parshas Pekude, this week's Torah portion, it talks about how Moshe had gemacht dem cheshbon. He made the summary, the inventory from all of the davos, from all of the gifts of the tabernacle, gold, silver, which were used to build the tabernacle. So this week is like a a summary of all of the previous weeks that we talked about building. This is talking about how materials were used. The mehat gesalbt den Mishkan und the Kelim mitten Shemen and Mishkan, and how was anointed the Mishkan and the vessels with the oil, anointing oil. Vimihat dort, and how it was their makriv given kabornos, and how they started to inaugurate the tabernacle by offering up certain sacrifices. And how was it pulled, and how it was drawn down the revelation of God. Milamaila, kavod Hashem milayat the Mishkan. It says that the glory of God filled the Mishkan. In other words, this week's Torah portion is the summary of the other three that talk about the building of the tabernacle. This means, as the Nakuda from Parshas Vayakel, the main point of the service of the message from last week's Torah portion is what the Jews did. Avodat Nivroim, what we had to do. How the Jews built the tabernacle with their own money and their own bodies and their own efforts. In their money, they had to bring 13 things. Some people say that it was 15. It depends how you count them, but the same thing. 13 in the items, 13 types of materials, which the Jewish people gave: gold, silver, copper, different types of cloths, and the stones, the precious stones, and that's what they gave from their money. In their bodies, they worked for building this Mishkan, and their souls, namely Nesolibo, that they put their emotions and their love into building the tabernacle. That's last week. Was is dar by Ganutz, which is therefore Ganutz Gavorn, whatever was used how the Jewish people with themselves they used. But after that, okay, so that was last week. Last week, Parshas Vayakel. So Parshas Truma and Tetzaveh talked about what God told Moses to do. God told Moses to do. Last week's Torah portion talked about how the Jews actually did it. Moses told the Jews what to do, and they did it. Okay, what's more than that? Comes this week's Torah portion. Nachdem, afterwards, Allah's is nit mer via avodas and nivroim, but afterwards it's only what people did. The chiddush, the novelty in this week's Torah portion is the hamshachah milmaida, that God reacted. This week's Torah portion, kavod Hashem mileyat the Mishkan, that the glory of God filled the tabernacle. God reacted. All the other things we have examples of nowadays. People give money to the people that are inspired, whatever. They give money to the synagogue. They give money for good things. People work on their own, but that God reacts in a revealed way, that is not so easy to see in this world, if at all. That's this week's Torah portion. Even though that the fact that the Jews did and the Jews worked, which is mentioned in Parshas Vayakel. It drew down revealed godliness from above, because anytime a Jew does anything which is good, it brings about a blessing from above. God always reacts. But then Parshas Vayakel in ganzen kein Ort nit zu dem Gilui, it has no comparison, erech nit, no comparison to the revelation of God which was revealed in the Mishkan. Then what the Jewish people did, it made a blessing, like what we do makes a blessing, but you don't feel it. Was is nimshach geworden durch der avoda from the Shemana Mishcha, but when Moses actually anointed the finished product, that drew down a revelation that everybody saw. He anointed it and he did the sacrifices, whatever the inauguration sacrifices. Then there was a big revelation. Oh, this big revelation, this is a new thing. Warum? Because oich in die fallen, in such cases, when hasmana milsahi, when you set something aside to be holy, that's so great in the preparation alone for is already considered to be something, is doch aber, but it is, you do, it's known as the hamshachas elokus durch ba stimmen und zu greaten, the drawing down godliness from preparing something, a physical thing, to do a commandment, is nit be'erich zu der hamshacha, is not comparison to what actually is accomplished when you do the commandment itself. You go and buy a pair of tefillin for your son for his bar mitzvah, beautiful tefillin, right? They cost $1,000, $2,000. How much they cost now, right? Tefillin for his whole life, it's beautiful. They're holy. You don't do anything. You don't do anything normal with them. You don't come in, and whatever it is, and use it for a paperweight or something on your table. They're holy. You build a sukkah, a beautiful sukkah. You have a beautiful sukkah. It's all ready to be used for the holiday, right? You buy a lulav and esrog. Okay, all those things are wonderful, and they have a certain degree of holiness to them because you set them aside. You set them aside, but still no comparison to the holiness after you use it. And even more is azoi bonogea. So it is also in building and Sugretin, the Mishkan. How much more so is when they built in the desert, they built the tabernacle and its vessels in Parshas Vayakel. It was all built. They weren't really holy until they were anointed with the oil of anointing, or by means of serving. They offered inauguration sacrifices. Is doch zicher, so it's sure, as their gilui, the revelation from above, durechem hazmana, by means of preparing a thing, unachana, is the gamri, it's not comparable at all to the revelation of God, which comes after you started to use the tabernacle. That's what in this week's Torah portion. Moses actually anointed it and he made sacrifices. Versus in Shoin Gaven, the Moshiach, then there was the anointing and serving. Oh, so this is the point. This is the whole point of these 4 Torah portions regarding the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and its vessels. In Truma and in Tetzaveh, this talks about how God commanded Moses to build the temple. God himself. This is an arousal from above, was is far, which comes before our work, before an arousal from below. And this gives a power to a Jew, nor in them gufa, in this itself, Zayin Faran Svein Akudas. There's 2 different points, namely the commandment from making the tabernacle and its vessels. That's in Parshas Truma, and the commandment to making the garments. That's in Parshas Tetzaveh. That's one thing. And then there's Parshas Vayakel. This talks about the commandment of Moses to the Jewish people and how they did this commandment. In other words, they built the tabernacle. It was built. That's already starting to work from below to above. But now in Parshas Pekudei, this is a higher level. This is talking about actually serving in the temple. This is an arousal from above, this comes from a revelation of God, which comes after our work. God's reaction in a revealed way. Okay, this is a very important point because it's very possible for a person to totally forget about God. And sometimes this is more evident in religious people. Sometimes this is more evident in religious people. A religious person, sometimes he can get so involved in the process and doing what you're supposed to do and saying what you're supposed to say and even thinking what you're supposed to think and avoiding what is forbidden, that you get so involved in it that you forget that it's God giving you the power to do this. You forget that it's God is giving you the ability to serve Him. That it's big miracles that you're able to put on tefillin. It's big miracles that you even want to put on tefillin, or that you want to keep Shabbat. It's a big miracle. You forget about the miracles. Notwithstanding the fact which the revelation of godliness, which is Parshas Vayakel, when the Jewish people did actually built the tabernacle, so there was a holy tabernacle was there. But it's that revelation of godliness that was in Vayakel, when the Jewish people actually built the tabernacle. There you see the holy tabernacle. This is incomparable to what happened in this week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, despite the fact that the revelation of God in this week's Torah portion is incomparably greater than what it was in the previous three, nevertheless, Lengben von deswegen, Barov Hashanim, we read the majority of years we read them both together. Warum? Because wenn se is nit kein Zeit, when there is no time, muss man sich eilen, amidst allein. We have to alone. Men muss. No, I'm sorry. We have to hurry up. As men muss rein happen in ein Woche. You have to grab on in 1 week. Das was darf nehmen 2 Wochen. Sometimes in 1 week you have to hurry up and do things that would usually take 2. What does it mean? Meint men done it. It doesn't mean as men soll roisgehen. You have to go out from time. Forget about time. For room the ganzen Indian, because the whole thing of the Mishkan and the Mikdash is dir betachtonim. You have to go according to the world. In Zman and Makom, in time and place. Nor men meint it means is time itself should not be a deterrent and a zoifil and Agbala and a limit. In Zman Gufa, that's why sometimes we read the 2 portions together. In time itself, it has to be doing things above time. Namely, what's the Rebbe saying? Sometimes a person, you learn from a rabbi. He's an older rabbi, he's very impressive. And you see as a genuine person, an honest person, a truthful person. he's a friendly, he's nice, he knows a lot of Torah, right? Is the way that he prays is really praying. And I'm just a young person, I'm just starting off, right? And everything, and who knows if I want to. It says sometimes you don't have time that you can take as much time as this rabbi has taken to reach his level. Says the Rebbe, there's times when God gives a blessing that you can, in a short amount of time, accomplish that same level of integrity and honesty and genuineness as this big rabbi has. Sometimes it's very possible. Not only is it possible, it happens all the time. The pu'ula from the Mailam Yazman, doing things above time. That's why the Rebbe is saying sometimes these 2 portions are read together. That it's something above time, in time, joining above with a below. Drich Sichot is especially in the joining from all these 2 Torah portions together, Vayakel and Pekude. This year we don't, we read them separately, but most of the years we don't, read them together. The point Vayakel is we have to work. And the point from Pekude is that God rewards, He gives revelation from above. When they're oiftu, and the what's the result of this? As men darf mechaber zayin, we can join 2 of these things together. When das is hakadama, this is a preparation for the revelation in the future, where it says, that's what we're learning about in the Maimer of the Rebbe, Ishu Ladbo, it says, it says that there'll be a kadkod shim shashayas. It says that there's a stone that was in the Holy Temple. It says that there's also the same argument as the stone. There was a stone in Noah's Ark, the Tzohar. It says that one says that it reflected light, and the other one says that it produced light. Reflected light means it receives and it reflects it. And those God gives, and the other one is it produces that we do the work ourselves. It's going to be, both of them are going to come together. Miraculously, we're going to do all the work, and God is going to do all the work together. How is it possible? It's not possible, but with God, everything is possible. And that's when these 2 Torah portions are joined together. Our work, that's Vayakel, and God's revelation is Pekude, that they'll both be together. The main point of this is don't forget about God, and don't forget that God wants to be revealed in a clear way everywhere in the world. That's accomplished by the Holy Temple and making ourselves a Holy Temple. Good. Now, let's learn. Let's stop.